Welcome to the Aftermatch, a special come for the rugby, stay for the Aftermatch. I've just had a child. Beaver's had logistical travel issues. He is currently in Los Angeles, but he did make it off the island. So that is a good sign. But we just thought we don't want you to miss out on anything. So why not come up with an Aftermatch special reacting to the first All Black squad of the year? Because boy, Beaver, it is a good one. Your initial reactions after you saw Scott Robertson name his 33 today?
I was excited. I was pleasantly excited. I didn't think that there'd be some of the selections that were made, but all of them, it excites me from a point of view of what sort of brand we're playing, Kirst. But awesome to see a few of those names who have had such whopping super comps get in.
Okay, so we're going to get straight into it. 33 players were named, 2 extra added as injury cover. Timoci Tavatavanawai,
Yes.
February the 19th, you made the call that he would be your All Blacks bolter. I think after the first round of Super Rugby, that's how early you called it. You called it probably after watching him in the NPC for Tasman over the last couple of seasons as well. But finally, the dream is about to come true for Big Jim the Difference.
Yeah, unbelievable. So good for him. I mean, yes, I did make that call after the Highlanders lost to the Waratahs, mainly because I think it was the first ever Australian Friday night game I'd watched in about 5 years because I was quite interested. But no, it was an amazing performance. And the thing about him is he did it for 17 weeks following that. He can kick, he can tackle, he's the best jackler in the competition, he can carry. And I just didn't know if they were going to pick him. I mean, I wanted it, because I thought the guy deserves it. But I just didn't think they would, Curse, considering the other midfield tried and true characters. But they found a way to get into him and get him in there, and it's absolutely brilliant.
6 midfielders have been selected in this one. What do you think is the most likely position that we will see Big Jim play? Because by the sounds of it, everyone in this squad is going to play a part against the French. Where will we see this guy? Midfield or on the wing?
Yeah, I think from a starting point of view, it'll be midfield as opposed to the wing. So I see him getting a start at the midfield. If, as Razor said, everyone's going to get a crack against the Frenchies. So I'd see him getting a chance at some point in the midfield from a starting jersey. And clearly he'll be a wonderful cover for the bench too.
Okay, Beav, the Highlanders back to their heyday. They have 3 All Blacks. The last few years have been a little bit grim, Ethan de Groot has been the sole All Black. They have now 3, Timoci Tavatavanawai, and the addition of the big Dutchman, Fabian Holland. This is the greatest story ever. Came to New Zealand as a 16-year-old, away from his family, did his final years of high school here, grew up idolising the All Blacks, wanted to come and chase the dream. And a few years later, this guy is now an All Black, or about to become an All Black anyway. You saw him in Hamilton for the first time when we were live, and you were just in awe about the size of this man.
Yeah, I think this is, although he's obviously a debutant or picked for the first time for the All Blacks, I think we've all seen this one coming. It's been signposted, he's been in camp, but yeah, you're right, Kirst. Seeing him live, you realise what excites the coaches, and that's his physical stature, and then obviously he puts it around the park. So I don't think this shocks anyone that he's been picked, but it is a wonderful story when you think about the journey he's gone on. And obviously there's a couple of others in the country. I think of Segner, who's also done something similar. So it is wonderful to, I guess, show these boys that it can happen. And as you say, it's the physical specimen he is and what he does with it that I think is probably most exciting for the All Blacks.
202, a massive human. When you start thinking about guys like himself, Josh Lord, obviously you've got Sam Darry, who's out injured at the moment as well. But the locking stocks in New Zealand, the future of our locks are looking pretty good right now.
Yeah, absolutely. We obviously lost 2 of the greatest of all time all at once, with Whitelock and Retallick departing. But obviously Tupaea's development continues. He's now, up there with Scott Barrett. They'll be the premier locking pairing, I think, in the world, but we've certainly got depth underneath it.
Okay, we move up the country. I'm skipping the champions for just a moment, and we are going to talk about that final. You're probably thinking, why have we not addressed the elephant in the room? We're going to do a full podcast on Wednesday when Beaver gets back to New Zealand, and we will react to the final. So we'll leave the Crusaders for now. But Hurricanes have 7 players picked for the All Blacks, Beav. And another one of these great stories, Duplessis Kirifi, who in 2020, the COVID year after the Rugby World Cup, He was part of the squad that went to Australia, that extended squad, but never got a game, and then hasn't been back in that All Blacks environment again since late last year when he was called in as cover on the end-of-year tour. Finally, 5 years later, he manages to break back in as a ripe old 28-year-old. This is cool for Duplessis.
Yeah, absolutely. And another one of these guys that you thought, at the start of the year, you thought probably how does he get his way into the Hurricanes starting loose forward show with, the depth that they've got in that position. But like Tavatavanawai, when you think of players this season outside of Ardie Savea, he's by far and away the most prominent forward that's been in the competition, as I said, behind Ardie Savea. So it was, again, you wondered whether they would pick him. You hoped that they would. But there was enough, I guess, doomsayers out there in the media and what have you saying that he's too small or this and he's that. But they've gone with him. I think it's a wonderful reward for someone who has been just so outstanding. And it's also quite exciting for the fact that I think it might signal that we do want a genuine seven, a genuine fetcher, someone not obsessed about the size, but the speed in which we can play the game. So again, Kurs, it was another quite exciting selection if you're looking at it from a broader scale.
This may be a little bit irrelevant, considering what you just said about him being an out-and-out seven and an out-and-out fetcher. But is there similarities between him and Quagga Smith, or just size-wise?
No, I think so. I think they both help teams play at a tempo which, other flankers might not. So, no, I think it's wonderful. I think from a point of view of he will put opposition under great level of stress come clean out time, because we have seen it between him and Tavatavanawai. Could you imagine them on the same team if they play together? It'll be
how many turnovers between the two of them, because they both top the charts, right? So how many games do you think those two would account for?
Oh, I'd say 7. Let's start with a 7, a humble 7, and go from there.
A humble 7. I like it. Okay, the Chiefs, Beav, 12 players. So they don't win the title, but I think their coach will be happy with the reward that they got today. 12 Chiefs players have been named in this All Black squad. Firstly, Ollie Norris may have come as a surprise to a few people, but you are the Oracle. And I reckon about 3 years ago, on our old radio show, SNZ Drive, you called your 3 future All Blacks, who one of them was Cam Roigard, became an All Black within 6 months or the following year. I think Cortez Bateman might have been another one. And Ollie Norris was a name that you plucked out of thin air as well. Yep. What did you see in this kid 3 years ago?
Well, he's a big boy. He's a big lump of a human, but he's also athletic. And I think you've seen it a lot with the Chiefs, just how athletic he is, how around the park he is, the mobility, the skill level. He's a big part of the Chiefs when they started to get roll on. Obviously, didn't happen in the weekend, but he is a genuine athlete of a prop, probably similar to a Tossie, who's obviously in the mix as well. So there's probably some things that Ollie's got to, look forward to improving under Jace Ryan. I'm sure he'll want to become a better scrummager as time evolves. But yeah, I think he's been earmarked for a while, and again, really, really athletic prop, Kurs.
The surprise package, another Chiefs boy, Brodie McAlister, who up until last year was a Crusaders Beav. Obviously his path to a starting position was blocked down there with Cody Taylor, and then they had George Bell, who was an All Black last year as well. So he came north, moved his family up here to the Chiefs, saw a bit of an opening with that injury to Samipeni Tokiaho and not knowing when he was going to come back. He's now an All Black. Who picked this? Come on.
Yeah, this is a wonderful story on so many levels. For a start, when he went to the Chiefs, he's yes, there was injury doubts about Takiaho, but he's there. Slater's been well and truly established in the Chiefs now, over 50 games. So all of a sudden, you thought, geez, that's a bit of a strange one, but he just couldn't be ignored by Clayton McMillan when it came to selection time. And every time he turned out for the Chiefs, he was really, really impressive. Obviously, his core skills were great, but around the park as well, again, Kurs. But also, I think the great story about McAlister, and it might be something that catches a few others and might hit them between the eyes, is he was somebody that could clearly see his pathway was blocked. I mean, he could be sitting there at the Crusaders right now holding his medal, but, he's part of a stockpile. But instead, he's decided to further himself and further his career. And I think there's a lot of guys around the country that might have to look at the story of McAlister and go on, you know what, he shifted to become a regular and get more game time, and now look at his career. So I think it's a wonderful story.
If you're wondering how he's managed to fit into the picture as well, Asafo Almore is out injured at the moment. So most likely we are going to see a number of these injured All Blacks come back into the fold for the Rugby Championship, but not right now. And talking about injuries, Beav, a couple of injuries. Luke Jacobson injured in the Super Rugby final. Christian Leo Willie has come in as injury cover for him. And Anton Leonard-Brown still not recovered from that shoulder injury just yet. So Amoni Narawa comes in for him. Riddle me this. How is Amoni Narawa, the winger, coming in for Anton Leonard-Brown, the midfielder?
Because I think when you look at it, Kirst, they've certainly got enough cover in the midfield. And I think Narawa was probably just a victim of the fact that there is a lot of midfielders and there's a lot of midfielders who can play on the outside backs. So from a balance point of view, he's ended up there. So that's that.
But if you want Amoni Narawa, just pick Amoni Narawa and have 34 instead of naming 33 plus 2 extras.
Might have been budget issues. Who knows? Might not have been enough out of this gear. Who knows? But he's in there now, and he's one of those guys that if they get a crack to, you know he's going to take it. But I think when you look at the squad, Curse, when you look at how they've done the midfield and the outsides, and they're a bit, I guess, from a quick glance, lighter in the outsides, they're not really. I think it's a clear indication that they see Rico being able to cover there. Obviously, Tavatavanawai, let's not forget that between Geordie, Bowden and Damien, you've got fullback cover. You've got, obviously, Jordan who can go to the wing. So I think they've got the balance right. I think it's wonderful that they've rewarded or given an opportunity to both, or to the three of them, and I look at Quinn Tupaea, Tavatavanawai and Proctor, and I think, none of us saw how they could fit them all in, but I think all of us wanted to see it happen, but they found a way, and it's exciting, I think.
Okay, we're tapping into that because here's another one of the great stories, and I think this is potentially the best story that has come out of this squad, and that is the recall of Quinn Chapaya, who up until, 3 years ago, Beav, he was the starting 12 for the All Blacks. Before Geordie Barrett was moved from fullback to the midfield, Quinn was the guy before that knee injury hit him in Australia. He is now back in, and over the last couple of years, it has been a rocky road. It has been tough for him. He wasn't able to break into the Chiefs last year, remember?
Yep.
You, I'm pretty sure, were quoted on radio as saying he needs to be one of these guys that ups and leaves the Chiefs and goes to a different franchise because he literally couldn't break in. He was playing on the wing at times. Sometimes he was making the bench. Other times he wasn't even making the 23. Now he's back. This is a great story.
Yeah, well, I'm glad he didn't listen to me because I had him signing for the Landers, and that means he would have gone there. We've never seen Tavatavanawai at 12, and then, who knows how those worlds would have worked out. But, yeah, you got to say, though, this year he's taken his game to another level. You mentioned where he was 3 years ago and that, I guess, moment that changed a bit of history because remember, Fozzie'd come out and said Geordie's not a 12, and then he was forced to pick him at 12, and Geordie had that amazing game at Eden Park at 12, and the rest is history. So for Quinn now to be back in there, Quinn's developed so much, I think, this year, Curse. I would have had him in there just as a basher because I think you need that, and he certainly brings that level of game that the likes of which I don't think we've seen since Laumapi was in the mix. But this year, you think of the touches he's brought with his foot. He's got a nice little kicking game to him now, his passing game. But more than that, too, I think there's some leadership about him. You see him, you always see Damien McKenzie play better, I think, when Quinn's on the field, simply because I think he's a great voice. He's a very smart, clever footballer. So, no, I think it's wonderful reward again for a wonderful season. And again, one of these selections that you're excited about, but you just didn't know if it was going to happen. So another one to join that mix.
You talk about leadership, Beav. He just led the Crusaders to a 15th title. That is David Havili. I put it out there on our social media pages. Drop your thoughts, comments, and your instant reaction to this team. There has been so many comments, but here's one from Brendan. David Havili is the most unlucky guy out there to not be selected in this team. They found a way to pick 6. They couldn't find room for a 7th, though, Beav.
Yeah, and you did right, and you feel for David Havili for all of this because you're right. I don't think the Crusaders get to where they've got to without him. He's been instrumental, I think, in the Crusaders' revival as a leader and as a player, not just a leader. I think you can hide behind that and say, "Oh, yeah, great captain." No, I think he's been a wonderful player. I think he's managed the first five situation inside him all year. And I, if anything, Curse, I just wonder if he's a victim of maybe there is a potential style shift this year in what the All Blacks want to do. And if he is a victim of that, then you can't fault them for that. They've got a way that they want to play, and maybe they saw what happened last year and they need to shift, and maybe they feel that David Havili doesn't fit that. But on form alone and playing for the Crusaders, there's no one more unlucky than David Havili right now, Curse.
This shift that you're talking about and change in style, we're seeing it across the board with the All Blacks, right? Razor was very clear today that he picked players on athletic ability and he picked players on versatility and the number of positions that they can all play. He kept highlighting the fact that their midfielders can play fullback, they can play wing, they can play here, there and everywhere. More instant reaction from our social media pages at the Aftermatch if you want to get involved and join the conversation. Ethan not being there is outrageous, is one comment. Another one says, where is Blackadder? Come on, one of the best on the field in the final, outplayed all the Chiefs. And he's not there. And I could just go on and on with these comments on our social media pages. Samipeni Finau and Ethan Blackadder, we talked about this 2 weeks ago that potentially they were playing for the one position. You're right. They've played for one position, haven't they? And they've chosen Samipeni over an Ethan Blackadder. Does this come back to the style thing that you're talking about?
I think it does. I think it has to. I think that's how you explain it. I would have thought, obviously, Ethan Blackadder's last month to 6 weeks, I think, has been there for all to see. As far as his form goes, it's been great. He's been as rugged as ever. He's been as physical as ever. And you can't hide from the fact of his grand final performance as well, Curse. But, again, like Havili, I wonder if he's been, if anything, it's not that he's not picked because he's not playing brilliantly, because he is playing brilliantly. But I wonder again if it becomes down to styles. When you look at a squad like you do, you always think there's going to be big numbers in the loosies, but to pick 6 out of the forwards we've seen this year is actually quite tough, so I thought they might have covered themselves and been given themselves 7 in there at least, but no, Samipeni Finau, if he's the one that's beaten out Blackadder, then for me, again, it goes back to style. I mean, they haven't exactly entrusted Samipeni in the past, this group, with too much game time, but they must have seen enough, because let's remember, Samipeni hasn't started much this year. He's played about the last 3 or 4 rounds and the final series, and that's it. And I guess his performances have been mainly the explosive stuff, and in wide channels, ranging, using the ball, big hits. And it is a completely different style, number 6, to an Ethan Blackadder. And again, it comes back to, like a few of the other selections, Curse, maybe they've picked player for style as opposed to just player's performance.
Okay, 2 other names that I want to mention just quickly. I'm pretty sure you picked Dalton Papalii last week when you tried to pick like every single loose forward in New Zealand. No one's talking about this guy, but seriously unlucky. Doesn't go on the end of year tour last year after picking up an injury, and now he's out of the picture. He was Sam Cane. Remember, he was the starting 7 when Sam missed those years through injury with the All Blacks, and now he's just fallen.
Yeah, absolutely, Kirsten. And without sounding like a stuck record, is it style-based performance? Because I saw style-based selection around Dalton as well. Because when you look at his performances against the Crusaders in that losing semi-final, the quarter-final versus the Chiefs where they won, he was about the best on the field as far as how physical he was, his work at the breakdown. And you put on top of the Waratahs performance the week before that, and so I know it's only 3 or 4 weeks, but he was as good as anyone for that time. And you wonder if obviously his pedigree already being an All Black, you thought, well, that's probably going to be enough to see Dalton go again and persevered with. But I was surprised he's not there, Kirst. But again, what does it say that we might be playing? Dalton's a more combative 7. He's a bigger man than, say, a Duplessis Kirifi. Might not probably get out in the wide channels, might not be as effective over the ball as Duplessis Kirifi. So maybe, again, they're looking to shift things up on how they've been playing.
Last one, Beav, because I don't want to miss anyone out. The ones that made it, celebrating them, and mentioning the ones that didn't either, who will be sitting there today, maybe not feeling too flash. George Bauer.
Yes. Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I think most people around the country had Bauer making it. And yeah, it is a surprising one for me that he hasn't snuck in there, particularly because I mean there's positions we're talking about where this maybe been selection on style is one thing, Kirst, around like your loose forwards, your midfielders, your halfbacks, with Hofen beating out Christie and what have you. But when it comes to props, obviously your bread and butter is to make sure that you're going to put pressure on at scrum time, you're going to be able to deliver the ball. So therefore, Bauer's scrummaging, from the amount that we know about scrummaging, Kirst, has looked pretty blooming impressive since he took over from Timoci after the injury. So, yeah, you got to feel for George because I don't think he could have done much more this year. I reckon I'm more confused than ever around Artie now. I reckon. Oh, I had him at 8, I thought, and then now I think about it, he's back to 7. If Dupe's coming off the bench, maybe I don't know. I can't work it out.